Today we're talking a bit about the idea of mastery, and this afternoon, yes, we have a workshop on that. But in the meantime, we want to cover this concept thoroughly, even just for this bit of time we do have. A lot of times I've been here and I've shared in most places I go, I talk about Christ consciousness. We hear about concepts of the divinity in us. In fact, it's what Christ is. It's the name we give God when it's in us. Christ is the name of God when in us. It's the name of our true self. It's what we were created to be. Now, we've fabricated all kinds of other names, all kinds of other identities. And when I go around to places, and I sometimes mediate meetings for churches, groups, individuals, couples, and so on and so on. When you talk to people about their issues, especially when it involves other people, it's interesting because you can easily get caught up in whatever's going on. The conversations, the issues, the troubles, the trials, and so on. Mastery, which is what we're talking about today, mastery means many things, and I'll explain some of it here. But one of the things mastery means is cutting to the chase. Masters don't mess around. Masters don't lollygag and it's like, let's get to it. Let's have the best. The best teachers, the best musicians, the best. You had a person speaking up here about service to your community. Well, of course. It shouldn't be a thing they have to ask. It should be, well, of course. Service is a hugely underestimated level of consciousness. It's one that actually brings prosperity and groundedness to our being. It brings all the lofty Om Mani Padme stuff right down to the here I am. What can I do? And masters, although the word masters know to serve. What else would we be here to do? If we are amazing, if we are Christ, what value does it have to light a candle and put it away in a cupboard? The masters choose love, but love in action. So we serve. Masters, however, know how to cut to the chase. When I talk to individuals and so forth, instead of just hearing all this stuff, I'm constantly reminded, you want to solve a lot of issues, you want to solve a lot of problems, here's one way to do it. And some people say, what is my soul's purpose? Or where should I move? Or this and that, and all the questions that befall us. First, if you don't know who you are, how can you come to any other conclusion? So everything that you do, everything that we experience, and we heard early on in the service today, the idea of how consciousness, how thoughts tend to create, right? We heard it in our morning affirmation and prayer. But who's the person praying? Because all of our thoughts are prayers, not just our words. Our thoughts are prayers. And now I'm not sitting here telling you about thought is powerful, that we know that. But your thoughts only can spring up based on your beliefs. Who you are determines what you think. What you think then will, of course, help determine what you see in your life manifest. But it all stems from who you believe you are first. So who am I? Who's the person talking today? So naturally, if I wake up, it's not that it's conscious, but if I wake up with a belief that I'm empty inside, I'm already determining what kind of person I might create as a partner. My emptiness will already determine. It's like a simple calculation. Emptiness, messed up, not knowing who I am. Send. It's the cosmic, dating service. It's not just on the internet, it's empty, unlovable, typically abandoned, and willing to take it. As long as you're there for me, as long as you're there, so I don't feel too alone. This is what we do. It's what we do with jobs. So we struggle, and the whole universe, we pray for God's will to be done. And then it starts to happen, and we say, God, I take that back. God, bring your will. Bring your prosperity and abundance. So how do you know that losing our ego form of prosperity isn't part of bringing in the greater one? So we want to remanipulate our version of the love-hate relationship with prosperity. Give it to us, but not too much, and not for too long, and not forever. We want the love-hate relationships of romance. We want a love-hate relationship with prosperity. We want the tide to come in and the tide to go out because we're used to duality. We don't want things to go too well for too long. And is that God speaking? Is that God in us? Is that the Christ? No, that's the twisted human part of our being. And it comes from the, I'm no longer part of God. Therefore, if I'm not part of God, which is an identity we now choose, what does a person have in their life when they're separate from love? Oh, probably messed up relationships. What does a person deserve in terms of prosperity if they're separate from abundance? God, abundance. Clearly, a little, smidgen of this and that, crumbs. That's all we can have. So when you see somebody standing up and singing from their soul, they're owning an abundance. And it's usually an abundance they've developed over lifetimes. But it's something that they're accessing, and I call it mastery. So some of us are masters at one particular thing or another, and ultimately, being the Christ, we can be masters of all things. You can be prosperous and beautiful and intelligent and so on and so on. Some of us barely eke out from life a skill at all, something we'd call ourselves good at. So what about good at everything? Some people are raised. These are my children. This is the cute one and this is the smart one. They can't be both. They can't be both. And that's how people are raised. You're either this or you're that. Artists typically are starving artists. There's a lot more starving artists than there are successful ones. Why? Because the art is coming from up here and the money is down here in terms of chakras. The prosperity's down here and we're way up here. It's such a strange paradox in life. Who are we? And the good news is God created us already with the ultimate identity. I mean, what else could you be but made in the image of God? So that part's already covered. But we've got to practice and consistently practice, make it a practice, to peel the layers off. How? Whenever you see the non-God opinion, it's got to go. Whenever you see an opinion of yourself being reflected that isn't God's opinion. So the lack, don't be afraid of it. If you see a little, oh wow, the checkbook. It struck a little fear for a moment. See it. Well, why not? Jesus did it. Jesus took a moment to say, in this moment, why am I afraid? It's okay, but do something about it. Masters don't mess around. They get to it. Who am I? What voice is that today? So when I mediate groups, all the conversation can go on and on and on. Humans, around and around and around. And usually it can come to such closure, and usually peaceful closure, when we ask ourselves, what is it you really want here? And what you want will come from what is it you really are? What's the core? Every board of every church, of every business needs to know who they are. And you know what's interesting about life? Some people went to Edgar Casey and they said, could you help us to do an oil well? We want to strike it rich and give money to the poor, whatever. So Casey found it, fine, okay. Go, and this guy's accurate, man. Casey could just do anything. So Casey goes into a trance, he finds a spot, he says, it's there. Go to this place, that's where to drill for oil. They raise the money, they start drilling. The drill bit breaks, this goes wrong, that goes wrong. They go to him again, well, what's happening? He says, the oil's there. You people are not all in congruence. Some of you want this, some of you want that. Some of you want the oil for the money for yourself, some of it want it for charity. And you know what? None of those are wrong, as long as they all could agree on what it is they're there for. The point of the story and the end of the story is they never struck oil. They gave up on it, and moments later, somebody else struck oil at the spot. You know who the person was? A person that wanted nothing but money. They weren't going, oh, money, Padme, God's will be done. They had one thought, ka-ching, and they got it. So we can go, God, how come the spiritual people always lose out? Because you're messed up. Get it together. Get it together. Oh, I just want to, and this is common. People will say to me, Michael, I'm going through a divorce and it's not about the money. Shut up. Don't say that too loud. I don't want anything. Stop it. You're going to a few years from now be having a session about what you don't have. It's okay to have a fair settlement. Oh, I want to be spiritual. I just want to backpack to Sedona. You will. And like a lot of people, after a few days, you'll be broke again. And then you'll have to go somewhere else. We have to get in alignment. Masters don't mess around. Who am I? What am I ultimately about? The Christ. And the Christ is just another name for a master. But we live in three worlds and don't realize it. It's just that our consciousness more identifies with one or another. There are three worlds: heaven, Eden, and earth. To live in heaven, you have to be divine and God in consciousness. To live in Eden, a master or the Christ. To live on earth, you just need to be human. Each of these is within us, but we know that our ultimate goal is the divine. And all of these are present, even Eden and heaven, they're right here. But it's a frequency you live in. It's a consciousness you live in. So a lot of us say the spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak, and we live nothing but in the humanness. The Master is always calling us to rise up, to get back to Eden, so that it inevitably back to our divinity. But you won't just get back to the divinity. You can't just chant it or ohm it or wish it or whatever. We have to live it. And before you see the divinity being lived and experienced, the master has to be lived and experienced. So what does a master look like, feel like? Well, it's like living the Christ consciousness in practical ways. I'll get into this much more in the afternoon, but really, loving, love in action, like service. Masters are loving. Masters don't, here's what we think: masters are either ascended, masters are Saint Germain. It's not your next door neighbor, it's Saint Germain. Or, no, there are people that we meet. There are people that sit on stages with flowers all around them, turbans and whatever, going, "It is nice to meet you." You know? Is that a master? It may be. If they see you mowing your lawn and struggling, do they come over and help you mow your lawn? That's the kind of master I'm looking for. There's lots of people that proclaim, masters. I'm such an amazing being. You don't know how many books I've sold. I'm a quadrillionaire. And yet, you can't reach them. You can't talk to them. They don't live this in a practical kind of a sense, a practical kind of a sense or a way. An example which I've shared many times, but I'll never forget. One time, one of my daughters, when she was a teenager, she introduced me to a friend of hers, this young guy. So he's probably 17-ish at the time. And he sat down and, he had quite a history, quite a tragic history. A lot of drugs and a lot of abuses and so on. But this kid was saying to me, "Well, yeah, I heard you know Dan Millman." I said, "Yeah, I know Dan." He said, "God, I want to tell you, that guy's book, The Way of the Peaceful Warrior, saved, not changed, saved my life." I'm like, wow, it's kind of cool to hear this kid talk about having his life saved. It's also an honor to know that the friends, this guy's book really helped him. I thought that's just so cool. And this guy struggles a lot in a lot of areas of his life, but he's pulling it back together. So the kid went over and got his soda that he had ordered at the restaurant. He came and sat back down, and my phone rang. I said, "Hello?" I said, "Yeah, he's right here." And I handed the phone. The kid answers the phone, "Hello." And the kid, because of his history, he's like, "Oh, God, the bill collectors found me." He immediately went to his program, his history, and he's thinking, how did they get Michael's number? And to find paranoia. But instead, he hears a voice. "Hi, this is Dan Millman." And I walked out of the restaurant and left him to talk to Dan. I called Dan and said, "Dan, would you mind?" I don't talk to Dan every day. He's a master. He answers his own phone. He does what he can to be present for people. I've never seen him act in a way that says, I'm too much. I'm too amazing. I'm one of the original New Thought authors. And he is. "Oh no, I'm a founder of this movement. I can't talk to beginners." To me, that's mastery. And there's so many examples, but it's not just the loving behavior. Masters are efficient, We don't mess around, man. We don't want to mess around with the stuff. Get to it. Mastery. When I say to people, look, we're struggling in our relationship, an individual or a couple, and they say, shouldn't we stay together? What should we do? Mastery doesn't say, well, why don't we try setting Thursday at 7 o'clock as being your intimate time? Why don't we, that's a little us time. Send the kids to a sitter. That's counseling, and it's fantastic if that's what you need. But you didn't sit down with a standard advisor like that. I'm going to say, answer me this. Can you imagine being together as is for 10 more years? And you see this, you have solved the problem. Cut to the chase. Houston, we have a problem. How about 5 more years? You see this. 3, 1, barely. That's my advice then. You give yourselves 1 year to change this relationship. And if it's not happening by then, you know what to do. You already know 1 year or beyond is not okay. But you know that you can handle it for months? That's our advice then. It's already emerged from you. You know it. You just have to wake up, grow up, and get it happening. You know you can't do more than a year, then why wait a year to start making changes? You already said you can't do that. And I'm not saying go home and say, honey, we need to talk. I'm not trying to mess it up. I'm saying ask yourself. Masters ask questions. So this is one of the most underestimated tools of attaining God consciousness when you're on earth. See, masters are still humans, but they're ordinary people living an extraordinary way. They're humans, but their focus is on the divine. No more settling. Eden is the embodiment of humans living as though we're already there, the divine, as much as we can. So we get to this place where this underestimated tool. And at the first discovery of this many years ago, bless you, the first discovery of this was hearing Edgar Cayce say, people should be asking themselves, what is their motivation? What is the cause of this? What is the why? Then when I came across Jesus in A Course in Miracles saying, when I said you must be as children to reach the kingdom, I was saying, you must ask yourself questions. You must say why? Like a child. Why is that? You know, I'm married, but why? I want a divorce. Why? Why? What is going on? Cut to the chase. Don't just do. Don't just go by automatic pilot or patterns. Don't just live the past, and don't just do because family says so or this says so or that. What is your motivation? Why are you a Republican or a Democrat? Well, my parents were. Wrong answer. Who are you? Your choice and affiliations, your sexual preferences and this and that, all need to be organic. But that's confused. That's too much work. I got to go back and sort myself all out. Yes. Sorry about that. Bit of inconvenience. But guess what? If you don't, then you are living in hell. We want to wake up. Why? Start asking. Masters love to ask questions. Masters know love. Masters know focus. Focus. We have sometimes the attention span of a hummingbird. I'm going to meditate. 3 times later, gone. No more meditation. I'm going to start doing yoga. You go through like 2 postures. Oh, I can't do yoga. I'm done. No attention span. What would the masters have done with this kind of attention span? Jesus calls it in A Course in Miracles, you're far too lenient of mind wandering. Where are you, man? I want to know God. Then sit still and call it in. 1 breath of it is a beginning. Don't say, I can't meditate till I can do it for an hour. 1 moment of be with me. Here I am. Think of nothing else for 1 breath, and you meditated for a moment. And so it is, and you got it. Now try to do 2 breaths tomorrow, maybe 60 seconds the next day, whatever it's going to be. It's a day at a time. I've always said, children, when they're tying their shoes, first learning to tie their shoes, how many things are they thinking about? Look at them. They're like, just totally focused. They're nowhere else. They're like and that's how you meditate. You cannot reach the kingdom if you don't know how to be as a child tying their shoes. There's a challenge. All you have to do is be like a kid tying their shoes. Be nowhere else. Think of nothing else. Care about nothing else in that moment. A Buddhist story said this disciple says to his master, Master, I really want to know God. I really want to have a different experience. The master says, let's come with me. He takes him out to the waters. Oh, it's going to be great. It's going to be a baptism of some sort. It's going to be amazing. Takes the disciple, dunks his head below water, and the disciple's, of course, receiving. Oh, this is amazing. Just hold in, just be under the water, be the baptism of the Spirit, etc., etc. Nothing's happening. The master's still holding him underwater. Nothing's happening. The master's still holding him underwater. Nothing's happening. Now it's getting like, okay, this is getting weird. I'm needing to breathe, but I'll go with it. I'll go with it. Underwater. And eventually, the disciple can't take it anymore. He starts struggling, and the master's holding him underwater. And eventually, when, you have to let the person up, the guy comes out of the water, and the master says, when you want God that badly, you'll find him. When you want God as badly as you just wanted air, you'll find him. So it takes some discipline. Not, I don't want to say hard work. The only reason it seems hard is because we have to counteract all the stuff we put between us and God. Once you get there, you go, oh my God, no. You say, oh my God, I had it all the time. I get it. I was this thing I've been looking for. Man, what a trip. Do you know how many people I rifled through in my personal index called relationships before I found that I was what I was looking for? Do you know how many things I did, places I moved, and all this, be it healthy or non-healthy systems. And it was all here all the time. I get it. And even after you get it, one of the things you do is just smile a bit more. You smile. You're like, it's all okay. You don't just say, oh, it's all good. No, that's just a sentence. You actually understand it's all okay. It no longer matters. All the doings, I've got to make sure I eat. I've got to meditate at 2 o'clock in the morning. I got to, be sure I celebrate in a circle on 9/11 and 11/11 and 12/12 and this date and that. So many dates. And on the Sabbath. And Mother's Day or whatever your local holiday might be. Or, of course, the seasonal Christian or Muslim or whatever other celebration you get involved in. Got to make sure you get all those right or else. And one day you realize this is amazing. Constantly I'm a celebration. God moves through me like I'm an instrument. I'm a harp. My job is to keep the strings tuned. And God plays through me. Keeping the strings tuned means integrity. Complete integrity. How do you have integrity if you do not know who you are? Because now I'm doing what you want. That's not integrity. Making others happy and pleasing others is actually not integrity. Integrity cannot happen if you do not know who you are. So I draw this to a conclusion somewhat. We have to come back to living the Christ life. Oh, that sounds so vague. And Christ, wow, and Jesus, no. Living as masters. Living as though our focus is on the divine. And that doesn't actually mean we wear a particular color or preach a certain way or all speak the same language in style. It's really about each of us figuring out what is mastery to us. I can do all things. I can be creative. I can do this and that. I can be intelligent, beautiful, sexy, all of it, healthy included. You can do and be anything because you are everything. Anything else would be falling short and would be an illusion. So all the struggling and doing is actually us dancing with our illusions. It's not as much really attaining and getting somewhere. It's getting over ourselves, getting back to who we really are. One time Paul McCartney was sitting there struggling with, I need a violin part in a song. And he's trying to figure out what part would go there. Now the thinker, humans, go, who should I date, who should I not date? What should the song be playing, what should the song not be playing? In the violin part. This is what humans do. They think it around and around. He stopped. He stood up in the studio and held a violin. And he said, if I were a violinist, what notes would be appropriate for that part of the song? And he let it come through him. You just, like imagination it's called. The higher mind is the mind of imagination, not calculation. You say, well, how would I live? What kind of person would I date if I had love and self-worth? And stick to that. What kind of job would I have? And go that direction. It's all really clear when we come back to the consciousness of soul. Right here. 3 identities. The divine, the soul, which is the master, and the human, which is the lower centers. The lower centers are not bad, but they're awaiting the master to show up again and say, no more living apart from God. I am choosing to receive God's will, which is always love, peace, joy, abundance, down into our lives. I'm back. I'm really sorry about that. I let things get unruly and crazy, and I know it's hurt you. But I'm back, and I promise to live in this alignment so that when you see me, you see the Father. And our lives can reflect that. They really can. You know, it's the kingdom being lived through us. When we say, sometimes we say, on earth as it is in heaven, in me as it is in heaven. You won't see it on earth till it's in me, each of us. Please take a few centering breaths. Set aside all else. Masters do not wish, they choose. We don't need 30 minutes to relax and center in. Right now, gently, lovingly, patiently command it to yourself. As you inhale, I am. As you exhale, relaxed. Make it so. If there were a doorway up here, and that doorway led to that Christ consciousness, that ultimate attainment, most of us would say we would definitely walk through that doorway. We don't realize that first we have to leave something that isn't that consciousness behind. How do you walk into God with illusions? So we have to come to understand there's a part of us we would like to leave behind today. I'm well aware that there are areas of my life that I would like to see reflecting more of God. Become aware of what that part of your life might be. Prosperity, health, whatever it is. It is not only possible, it's inevitable. You are going to have that attainment today or another day. All that we get to choose is when. It's already the will of God, which means it will be done in me as it is in heaven. So why would I wait another day? I'm allowed to, but why would I? A master asks themselves. We cut to the chase. No more. Even if I have resistance, I choose today. And so I ask the Spirit of God to bless my mind and reveal to me something I can leave behind today before I walk through that door. Let it be spontaneous. Anything, a thought, a belief system, part of your life you don't like, part of your body you don't like, someone else you don't like. Anything that comes to mind is probably relevant. Let it come to surface and know that it's proper, appropriate, perfect, and it's what we need to see today. Beloved Father, Mother, God, your perfect presence is your will for me in all areas and aspects of my life. masters and the Christ doesn't just have things come and go, a little blip here and there of positivity. We live the experience, and it grows and grows and grows, never to be taken from us. But to reach that place, that level of consciousness, means leaving something behind. So to you, Father, Mother, God, I bring to your altar this thing. My hurts, my wounds, my limiting belief systems. Even if I don't know what they are, you know. So I'm surrendering anything that keeps me from living the Christ life, the life of a master. Particularly in this area of my life that's come to mind, be it prosperity or parenting or whatever. I set this on the altar to release it and let it, like the burnt offerings or the incense, dissipate and rise into the heavens. And I stand and I walk through the doorway before me that takes me into the Holy of Holies, the place that God dwells within the temple of Solomon that I am. Into that holy place, I step up and I rise. I experience God's presence. Asking ourselves, what is it like to feel the presence of God? And associate it with an emotion like peace or joy, oneness, contentment, any word that fits right, feels right. Breathe in the word's presence like peace. Breathe it in. Hold it for just a second to anchor it in your heart. Exhale and let it wash over you with the words, and so it is, quietly. And do it a few more times, calling in the presence of God. Just like that monk, there's nothing more that I want but air right now. There's nothing more that I want right now but God, in the form of peace and joy. And know, when you call in peace or joy, you get all else that God is. When we seek first the kingdom, everything else follows. Only our heads tell us different. Only our wounds and patterns tell us different. Peace, peace, peace. Christ is born today to a new level in our hearts and souls. Feel that as a celebration. Let it lift you. Be still and know that God, or I am, presence. Be still and know that I am God. Hear that reverberating through your being. Be still and know that I am God. Be still and know the presence of our Holy Father, Mother, God. And just as promised, dwells within us, as us, if we but accept it. Standing in that Holy of Holies, turn now, look back through the doorway at your life. All of its highs and lows. Look at bills you can't pay and ailments you can't seem to fix, troubled situations and relations. Look at them, but stand in the holy place. Look at them and say to them, be still and know that I am God. You deserve this because you've made room for God by setting something aside. You've walked into that place. You called it in and integrated into your being. It's not a boast, it's a divine right. Command to that world, be still and know I am God. We don't call from the earth begging God to fix war and disease. Step into God. Give up the warring part of yourself. Step into God. Look to the world and make it so. Be still, war, and know. Feel the presence of love. I'm here, speaking on your behalf. Tell sick people, tell people struggling with prosperity, even your own issues. Look at them and command God's presence. All is well. Say to them, I swear to you, despite the way things look, there is a holy presence within you, and I know that because I feel it within me, and you are a part of me. With absolute conviction, look to the things of this world as God and say, I love you. I absolutely love you. And there is nothing else. And I celebrate that when we recognize and accept that, we will indeed see, feel, experience heaven on earth. And that begins now. And so it is. A few more centering breaths as closure. Centering breaths, feeling a sense of gratitude for what we've just shared and experienced. Feel the gratitude from your heart and soul, but feel the gratitude of God for what you've just done. It is grateful for you. Feel the gratitude of people all around the world whose lives and souls you've just lifted. Feel gratitude. Feel power and excitement that a new world's being born. And in your last breath or two of this exercise meditation, feel like you're packing it into every muscle. Don't come away from the meditation onto the earth. Bring it with you. Feel, stretching it into every muscle, fiber, organ, gland. Bring that divinity into your being. And as you do so, stretching the last half minute, we will gradually move into the next part of the service.